Good morning, Beachbody Champions. So happy to be here today. I'm super excited for a special guest that we have coming here to talk to you today about her success story and her journey with Beachbody. So I'd like to welcome Tracy Jastrzebski. Has been a coach since 2017. She is a 3-star diamond team from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And she, guys, get this, she has lost 140 pounds. Tracy, welcome.
Thank you for that. I am truly just so honored and humbled to be here today to share my story with you guys. I hope that I'm able to impact a few of you. My story is obviously a little bit different than most people, as I have lost 140 pounds. My life has been a huge transformation, and I'm such a strong believer that my transformation is from the inside out. I've had to work a lot on personal development for myself. And in order to do so, I had to work on and read tons and tons of books. One book that I particularly hold really close to my heart is called The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. It is so incredible. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of it or not, but I do recommend it. It was a book that I really connected very well with at the beginning of my journey. I was in the comparison act. So I spent a lot of time comparing myself to other people and how other people were. And I needed to stop that because we're all so different. And the book really taught me just because she is or he is the way they are doesn't make me a bad person. And so that just really taught me to be who I am, to own who I am, and to rock who I am. And to learn as time went on that my life was able to change. I needed to hear all of those words that book spoke to me. I've actually struggled with weight my entire adult life. I've tried every single quick fix, every cleanse, every weight loss pill, everything you can imagine, you name it. I've tried it. But there's always just that missing piece to everything that I tried. And it was the endless love and support that we provide as coaches.
Okay. So how, after you started reading this book and you were looking for change, kind of how did you get introduced to Beachbody, or how did you get in contact with Beachbody?
Well, I went over just to give a little bit about my past health, I went over about 7 years in my 20s without having a physical. I hated going to the doctor, hated it. I dreaded to hear what the doctor always had to tell me. They would always tell me, Tracy, you need to lose weight. You need to start looking after yourself because you're going to end up with some serious health issues. And it was always words that you never, ever wanted to hear come from anybody, never mind your doctor. It was actually so sad because I was on the high end of high blood pressure. I was on the borderline of high cholesterol. I was borderline diabetic. And actually to the point that I was black in my neck. My armpits were really black, my elbows, my knees, my knuckles, everything, because I was starting to rot from the inside out because my internal body was so unhealthy, and I was no longer able to hide my health with a pair of Spanx and with a cardigan, because I would just cover up and dress according to my size, but my health wasn't lying anymore. So then it ended up that in 2014 I actually ended up injuring my knee curling. So I had popped it out and I needed to have surgery. And that was very trying, obviously, because I had to go to the doctor. I was in emergency and things were very challenging. The doctor was checking all of my blood pressure and all that stuff, obviously, while I was in there, and I was sky high. My blood pressure was through the roof. And I'd always just say, well, of course it is. I'm stressed. I'm in the clinic. I just got hurt, all those things. And they were like, yes, I understand that, but I don't think it should be this high. And I'm like, oh yeah, I've never been told that I've had high blood pressure before, but meanwhile, I was told that all of the time. So what ended up happening was they sent me home with a blood pressure machine, and they said, okay, Tracy, I want you to monitor this. I want you to go home and monitor your blood pressure multiple times a day. And so I was like, okay, I can do that. So I took it home with me and I would check it. And of course it was reading very high, but I was only fooling myself. However, I Googled all of the proper numbers that I should have been at my age, at my weight, my gender, all that stuff. And so I wrote down in my notes what it should have been for an entire week. I brought it back to the clinic And I said, okay, here you go. And she's like, something's not adding up. But she took my word on it and she said, okay. So anyways, fast forward, and I was finally able to have knee surgery with a few adjustments in my life. And then I followed that by having physio for a few months. And I babied my right leg 4 months after. But I thought I was doing a really good job babying it and hiding the fact that I was looking after it, until one day I was going to my mom and dad's and I was climbing up their deck, and I would never actually put any weight on my right leg. So I was able to climb up on my left leg as normal. And then when I would go to use my right leg, I would actually just pull myself up with my right arm and I would just go through the motion, but never actually put any pressure on my right leg because I couldn't. My knee couldn't handle the weight that I was carrying. And when I was walking up, my dad was sitting on the deck and he says, gosh, Tracy, and he was just so kind and supportive and he meant no harm by this, but he says, gosh, Tracy, you're still sure babying that leg, isn't it? It's still bothering you. And I said, no, it's not. And I was kind of sassy to him, like it's not his fault. And he said, oh, okay. And then at that point, I was so embarrassed because I realized that I was no longer able to hide that. And I knew I had to take control over something. So then I was introduced to Beachbody. And at the time, I was 29 years old. And I said to myself, okay, I need 30 to be my year. I needed to be the healthiest year of my life. I needed to change something. And so I did. And that's when I was introduced to Beachbody. I saw a friend advertising about it on her Facebook and I was super intrigued. And my sister actually was the one that originally brought it to my attention because she saw one of her friends talking about it. So she's like, why don't we do this Beachbody challenge that everybody's doing? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't know anything about it. So I started following the girl like a hawk on her Facebook. And I was like, what is she doing? And then she was getting me so fired up for her January challenge that she was going to do. And I was like, okay, I'm in, Kirsty. However, I didn't want to join with my sister. So she joined with her coach out of her town and I joined my friend because I just didn't want to fail again. And I didn't want my sister to know why I failed. I wanted to be able to have that secret or that excuse behind the scenes without her knowing. So her and I joined separate groups, but she was always constantly supporting me every single day. She was just on it. She started with Insanity Max 30. I started with T25 Challenge Pack. And I was ready to start for January 1st because that's when my coach was doing it. I was just right pumped up. So then unfortunately, between Christmas and New Year's, my aunt that had been battling cancer lost her battle and she passed away between Christmas and New Year's. So life changed. We had a funeral to attend. And at that time I was like, that could have been another drawing card for me. It could have been another excuse to not carry on with what my expectations were for myself at that point. But to be honest, I had just finally hit rock bottom and I knew I needed to change. And so as soon as when I got back, I got settled, I took a couple of days and I started January 8th, 2015. And it was so hard. I do still get very choked up when I talk about it. And the last couple of days, as I was gearing up to talk about my story, I actually did a couple of T25 workouts because, man, that man just hits me in the soul. His words, his just motivation. Shanti is just something about him. He just gets me so fired up. So anyway, I started that program and it was so hard. I was 340 pounds and I literally cried every single workout. I couldn't believe that I allowed myself to get to the point that I was in my adult years. I was so unhealthy. My mobility was awful and I just couldn't do anything. I actually had to stand between my counter and a chair to stretch, to lift my leg up, to stretch, to do any source of lunge, to do any exercise. It was so challenging. So I wanted to quit so many times. And then I remember on January 17th, I laid on my living room floor and I bawled my eyes out. I just did the ugly cry. And then I called my mom and dad because they're always my rock. And I said, I just can't do this. This is so hard. I think I'm just meant to be fat. And my dad was so sweet. And he said, Tracy, too stubborn to quit. And fair enough, because that is very true. And he said, just do the best that you can do. It's like, don't quit. You can do this. And so then my mom, is sweet and kind and supportive as she is, she picks up the other phone. And so the three of us are on the phone, and she says, Tracy, just take it day by day. Don't get frustrated. Just do your best, however that looks for you today. And I feel like that is the best advice anybody could ever give anybody. Because if you just do the best that you have with the situation that you're given, you're going to be successful. So they calmed me right down, and they were right. I remember I wiped my tears off, and I was like, okay, I can do this. So I stood up, I pushed play, and I just literally never looked back after January 17th, 2015. And there was Sean T in my living room on my big screen, and he was screaming at me at the end, do the best that you can do. And I was like, yeah, what he said. And so I just got so fired up, and I was so happy that my coach at the time referred that program for me, because I truly just don't think I would have continued on if it wasn't for Sean T. I think that he was my life-changing hero. And when I met him in Nashville, I cried in his arms. I was super excited. So my first month, actually, I lost 17 pounds, and it felt so good. I was so pumped. I was ready to commit. I found myself a new routine that was doable. And then at that time, I actually was like, I got my shit together. I've got this. So I canceled my Shakeology, because that was smart. And then actually, after a couple of days of not having Shakeology, I slowly started to go down a slippery slope, and I was falling into bad habits again. So at that point, I was like, okay, I know I need this stuff. This stuff is magic. So I reached out to my coach, and I signed up as a discount coach, and I never looked back.
Wow, you were giving me chills during that whole time of, especially when you're laying on the floor, and, coaches, you've all probably felt that before in your life, for whatever it may be, physical, mental, emotionally, unable to move. And what an inspiration, Tracy, you are for us to just continue pushing play and moving forward. And that advice of doing the best that you can each day for yourself, that's the best advice ever. And so as you're working on this transformation of yourself, and you signed up as a discount coach, what kind of made you decide that you wanted to be a working coach and take this on as a business?
Well, it was kind of crazy, because 3 months after that, I started to feel really good. I was starting to, notice a lot of results. My friends, my family, everybody was starting to notice things. They started to notice how much happier I was, how much more confident I was becoming. And so I told them what I was doing, because obviously it was never a secret. And I would actually refer them to my coach. And then one day my sister said to me, Tracy, why don't you become a coach? And I looked at her and I laughed. I said, no. I can't be a coach, Tracy or Christy. I'm over 300 pounds. There's no way that I can inspire somebody to do what I'm doing and be a health and wellness coach at the state that I was at. But as much as I didn't want to do it, I kind of wanted to do it, because I was thinking, this is probably going to be the best accountability tool for myself that I could ever imagine. And honestly, I was just thinking of where I was when I started everything. And I hope to at least inspire one person to change the way I changed my life. So I signed up as a coach. I was like, okay, I really have nothing to lose at that point, right? So I signed up, and I actually reached out to my entire family, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, everybody. And I was like, hey, do you guys want to do this weight loss challenge with me? And they were all so supportive, because I have an incredible family, and everybody signed up. I think my first month I ended up hitting Success Club 52 or something wild like that. I ran my very first challenge group through iMessage. So we had a big group chat, and I had no idea what I was doing as a coach. They didn't even have a coach guideline at the time. So I was just finding Pinterest quotes and sending them off and being like, did you work out today? Like, I just kind of winged it and it worked. And you know what? I often wonder, did they do it for themselves, or were they doing it for me? But regardless, I'm thankful for it. And I just continued to go on with that. And I ended up after 3 months of becoming a coach, I ended up going to Summit in Nashville. And Nashville has always been a dream trip of mine. So it was just almost like the universe had my back. It was all just the stars were aligned for me. So I attended my very first Summit. And I remember sitting in the stands for the weight loss challenge. And oh my gosh, I was so emotional, you guys. Struggling with obesity is an emotional roller coaster. You have to overcome so much. And so everybody's story is so different. But when you're struggling with something like that, you have so much to relate to. So I remember listening to those people chat, and I could connect with them so well. And we all had our same, very similar struggles. And I thought, wow, I want to be up on that stage one day. I want to be able to win that money and change my life and help people like that. And I have won $1,000 for my challenge. I was leading up into the finalists to become a grand winner, and I didn't win. But honestly, I feel like I am still a winner today. I've lost weight, I've gained confidence, I've changed my entire life. It's just been an incredible journey, and I've been a part of something that I didn't even know was out there.
Thank you. You kind of mentioned early on in your story that you were hiding all the time behind people, behind your clothes, thinking that you were invincible. If you just thought if you did these certain things that people wouldn't see you for who you were. And now you're in this coaching business where you're out there for the world to see. And so I have to assume that you kind of must have been worried at some point and bothered that people are going to be seeing you. Kind of walk us through how that changed for you in not being worried about what other people thought or caring about what other people thought on this journey that you're having in your coaching business.
Okay. Honestly, I had lots of people criticizing me. And at the beginning, I was very standoffish. I didn't post every day. And at that time, you had to post like 2 or 3 times a day on social media. We didn't have these Instagram stories where you just share your whole life now. And people were awful. And I just think to myself now, like, what did you get out of criticizing me like that? But anyway, you know what? There's going to be haters. And I just finally said to myself, okay, I don't even want to connect with those people. Really, it wasn't those people that were judging me in a negative way that I wanted to help. And so I thought, okay, you can keep doing your thing, but I'm going to do my thing. And I knew that people were going to have their little tea parties and they were going to huddle around and they were going to talk about me if they wanted to, but then I started to think they're going to talk about me if I'm not successful, if I become successful, if I grow a kick-ass business, if I plaster my life on social media, it doesn't matter. People are going to talk about you. So I just changed. I had an aha moment and I was like, okay, they can do them. I'm going to do me. And I wanted to do what was best for myself to bring joy. And honestly, this job brings me so much joy, more than I ever imagined. And I think the biggest thing is not to worry about what other people ever think, and to just choose your audience. And I remember finally having that moment where I was like, this is who I want to speak to. These are the people I want to touch. And that's what I'm going to focus on. And so that's what I did. I just had a huge shift, I guess, in that.
And so after you had this mind shift and you're in this great spot, it's just been smooth sailing for you, or did something else happen along the way in your journey?
Things changed for me drastically in 2017. My dad was diagnosed with colon cancer, and then it spread to his liver. And he was my rock. My dad was literally the person that I talked to, every single day. He was my person, and he was the guy that would call me all the time. And he would say, so how was your day, Tracy? How many people did you inspire? How many likes did you get on that picture? How was your workout? You know, all of those things. He was so intrigued. And then when I would do a good post, he would always call me, gosh, do your followers ever like that one? Hey? And it was just so touching all the time to have his support. My mom and my dad are both like that, but dad was just different. And so in 2017, he got diagnosed with cancer, and then he ended up passing away August 3rd, 2017, very unexpectedly. So as you can imagine, life took a huge turn for me. I just wanted to lay in my bed with my head in my pillow, and I was just like, life can't even go on. I don't even know why. I don't know how to carry on. And it just truly felt impossible. I felt like I had no reason. But then I had a moment, and my family, thankfully, my family is a very healthy family. My mom has been working out forever. My sister does this with me. My brother's very active. So when we were all together, we really pulled together. And that's when I leaned in even more to my workouts, because I knew how good I felt when I was doing it. And I thought, gosh, Tracy, Dad would not want you laying in bed doing this and giving up on everything that I built up until that lifetime. And so I just had a bit of a plot twist, and I quickly turned my why and I added to it. I continued to constantly have that support, and the words that my dad always told me every single day, I had them ringing in my ears, and I still do. I still feel so blessed that that I had him for as long as I did. But it's just never long enough. You always expect your parents to live until 100, and 60 just isn't old enough. I've used him, sorry. I know at one point I had to turn, and Dad used to always say to me, Tracy, I think you're onto something with this business. And that's how he actually encouraged my sister to become a coach. And I was like, yeah, he goes, that's one thing about you, Tracy, you're a girl with a plan. And so I just always have that as my daily motivation. And I still continue to thrive with that, because I didn't want to disappoint him. I'm not here to disappoint my parents in general. And I just began to share my story in a different way. I share the good, the bad, the ugly, the everything that you overcome, because you want people to connect with you and be very authentic.
Wow, Tracy, so many hardships that you've had laid in your lap, and you have beautifully risen above every single one of those, and moved yourself forward, and in the process helped others and changed others' lives. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. How has sharing your story helped you with your Beachbody business?
How hasn't it? Is probably a better question, but honestly, sharing my story has changed my entire life. It's saved my life. It's brought so much power within, honestly. I think the important thing about becoming a coach and building success with it is just being authentic, being honest, being true to yourself, and always just working on yourself to be able to share with other people. And it's been the best accountability tool for myself, because I know for a fact, if I wasn't sharing my story on social media, I would never be down 140 pounds, because nobody would care. And having that tool to share your story on social media and to be sharing it in a group like that, in our accountability groups, it's like a dream job. I feel like I landed my dream.
That's awesome. If you had one tip that you could leave with our coaches today, what would you leave them with?
Be honest and true to yourself. Be authentic, because everybody has a story to share. Nobody has a perfect life. I feel like with every area of your life, somebody is going to connect with you, whether that is the loss of a parent, if you're an athlete, whatever it is, just be true to who you are. Be real, be raw as you are willing to be. And honestly, just put yourself first. Always, always put yourself first, because you can't give from an empty cup. So I always think, okay, if I get my workout in, if I do all the things that power me up, then I can just give so much more to people. And I think that's what's really, really important about this job, because that's what we're here for. We're here to better ourselves in order to better other people. So just be true to you.
Perfect. I love, love, love that, because it's true. If you're not working on you, how can you help other people? Because you have to love yourself enough to better yourself enough, and then share what you have learned in your journey and your passion with others. And coaches, it's so true what Tracy said. Everybody has a story. Find yours and share it authentically. Be open, share the journey and the process that you're going through, so that you can find those people who are looking for you. There are people out there who are looking for Tracy, and each one of you. And by sharing your story, you can connect with those people. Thank you so much, Tracy, for coming on today and sharing your story. We really appreciate it. And it's nice to feel like we're kind of connected right now during this time of like soft opening where we're kind of getting back out into society, but I still feel like I'm not out in society. I'm still working from home. And so it's great to have this faux connection where I'm able to come out and talk with all of you. And Tracy, again, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
You guys have a great week.